Hello everyone, this is Gone with Gandalf, and today we are going to go over some of the posters that Lord of the Rings on Prime recently posted yesterday and trying to decipher what they each mean. And I've got some notes here, so we're not doing any umming and ahhing, so let's go right in and have a look at the first one, which is going to be this broken sword here. The descriptive text that we've got for this one is that the sword is old and jagged and the hilt is ornate. They are clad in a robe of fur and animal skin. And that is roughly what I had written down here. If you look here, this does look like something that a seafarer would wear. It kind of looks like a seal skin. So whether or not this is up in the far north where it's going to be quite cold, you're going to want something like that. I'm thinking maybe Forward Wyth, but why would anyone be there? Well, so it is a seafarer, probably, and we've got a sword here which is broken and it looks kind of rusty. It's also got this kind of golden dust upon it. But why is it so rusty? Probably because it's been out at sea exposed to salty air. But this isn't Narsil. I'll say that right now. Narsil doesn't break until the very end of this age. Nor does it look like this. We know what it looks like. So my thinking is that this could be Gurthang or Anglakel, the sword which was used by chiefly Turin Turambar. And you might think that this would have been sunk beneath the waves, but actually Tol Morwen, where his grave was, is one of the few isles that, if you look at a map, that didn't actually get sunk beneath the waves. So there's a chance here, because it wasn't ever explicitly said what happened to the sword. Perhaps this is indeed that sword, and someone's gone and sailed over. We don't know who this is, but they've gone over and sailed and brought it back. Because, of course, this is an ancient heirloom of Numenor, and because they are his descendants. And also, this sword was said to have semi-sentience, so that it could speak. That could be quite interesting. But anyway, we'll move on to the next one. And the next one is... boom. Horse Lord, as I've named it in my files here. And I know what you're thinking. Rohan! It's definitely Rohan. But hold on, let's just read the descriptive text here. The hilt of the sword is shaped like a white horse with a golden mane. They are dressed in a reddish scale mail. Now, that does look an awful lot like Theoden. However, Rohan hasn't been formed until actually the very late Third Age, although this guy looks like he's ginger because he's got freckles. Anyway, this isn't going to be Rohan. It's not even going to be the Aethiod. This is going to be potentially Horse Lords of Rivanion. I mean, they're probably going to be quite fond of horses, but they are... I think this tells us that the story isn't all going to be in one place of Middle-earth. It's going to be kind of all over the shop. Would it be like Witcher Season 1? If you haven't seen that, there's about 6 or 7 episodes leading up towards the finale, and each of them are standalone stories in different parts of the map. Could this mean that we're going to have an episode centered on the dealings of perhaps Sauron in Rivanion and the Horse Lords rise up? Maybe there's some kind of conflict between them and the Easterlings. I don't know, but I can say right now it's not going to be Rohan. Moving on to number 3. Here we have this. Let's quickly read the description. They are holding a golden rod that appears to hold a scroll. They are dressed in ornate robes of crimson, red, forest green, and gold embroidered with gold thread. Now, this is... It's probably an elf. I'd say that it looks like the kind of fresh drip that you might have in Linden or Rivendell. Rivendell wouldn't have been founded at the beginning of the Second Age, remember? So it wouldn't be right there, but this looks very ornate. Now, I had a go at actually translating this stuff here, but it actually, well, it's quite difficult. Let me have a look here. So what I did was I just went and searched for the Sindarin Tengwar, which is just kind of like their alphabet, and I used this to try and decipher what it would say. The only issue with that is that you might figure out what it actually says, but then you've got to figure out what those letters mean. Because remember, it's not just going to be Elvish script, English language. But roughly translated, what I could get out of at least these three here, it would have been like "Wie früher seath." I don't know what that means, and I can't even guarantee you that's what it actually says. But if anyone else wants to have a go, probably someone already has. But it's very interesting for people that are into that. But I think, like, who do I think this is? Well, I think this is probably Elrond. It looks like a lawmaster. As I said, the clothing, it kind of looks like what we're used to seeing Elrond in. Of course, it could be Gil-galad. It could be just a Numenorian lawmaster equally. So, but that's who I think it could be. So we'll move on to the next one. Oh, and remember, if you've got any other ideas of who someone could be, feel free to pop it down in the comments and we can have a chat. Okay, but we're going to stick with the elves because this one looks really good. I think this is probably the one that stuck out maybe the most to me. The last one definitely did, but we'll have a look at this one first. And the description here is that their left hand is in front of their chest, holding a silver and golden dagger pointed downwards. And yeah, they are in a silver-coloured medieval style armour. Indeed. And just by the shape of this, you assume that it is a woman because it goes out, so it's like the for the hips, and I would also assume that this is an elf. Now, if you check out this hilt here, let me just make sure I'm reading this correctly. Yeah, so the hilt does kind of look like two trees, right? And what two trees are we familiar with and have been teased for this show already? So we've got Laurelin here, which gives off golden light, and Telperion, which gives off silver light. The amalgamation of the two, of someone who has seen the light of the two trees holding this dagger. I think we're going to see some kind of action-styled Galadriel here, not just the pensive, noble lady of the Noldor that walks around in in forests. I think we're going to see someone that is going to be more into battle. Perhaps we're going to see her leading the troops, doing some kind of secret missions. I don't know. But she's not going to be meek and mild. We can be assured of that, whoever this is, because they've got a dagger. Number 5, then. This is kind of a bit of a step back from the last ones, but the description here is that their hands are dirty and are held together, palms up, holding 3 large acorns. Their tunic is dirty and torn and made of rough fabric. So this isn't anyone particularly elegant, presumably. We don't know. Is it going to be a hobbit? I don't know. But the acorns, right, these could be Malorn acorns. Malorns are trees that only grew on Numenor until Galadriel would plant some in Lothlorien, and then later Sam would plant one in the Shire. But look how big they are in the hands, right? This kind of looks like either these are massive acorns or these are small hands. I mean, it's clearly a woman because biology. Well, I mean, I'd assume it is. But and this is some kind of gardener. Maybe this is a hobbit. I don't know. But I would like to think that these are Malorns. They tried to plant some in Lindon. It failed. Maybe we're going to see the exodus towards Lothlorien. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. And the next one, here we have the end of a grey beard. They are holding a red apple in their left hand. Their hands are dirty and they are wearing a rough grey robe. So if we see here, the weave of his clothes, his garments is really thick. Certainly function over form. This isn't someone that's going to be stepping out for any pageants, I'll say that. And it does look pretty decrepit. It looks like this could be a vagabond. But because of the fact that, well, like the fingernails are dirty, everything's quite dirty, they've got the old beard going on. Is this one of the blue wizards? There's a distinct lack of any blueness, but that's kind of, is it a wizard? That's all I can think of. We'll move on to the next one. The next one is the bone staff. Their hands are clasped around what appears to be a primitive farm implement of some sort. It looks to be made of wood, and a sharp claw is tied to it. Their hands are dirty, as are their clothes. So this isn't a. I originally thought, oh, is this one of the wizards? I don't think it would be, because this staff is clearly, it like comes up just to the sternum. It's not like big enough to be like a wizard staff. We typically see them like go like up to the head height, perhaps a bit higher than that. Is this kind of going to be a spy for Sauron? Okay, then. I really like this one. You don't need me to tell you from the description that this is probably a dwarf, but we do see a red beard. The hands have multiple rings. We see the person's chest behind the hands clad in crimson armor. So, I mean, yeah, they've got red hair going on here. They've got multiple rings. Now, we haven't seen that many rings up until this point, but they don't appear to be any kind of rings of power or anything. They are probably just rings, but this is a dwarf. I don't think anyone can dispute that. We've got some dwarven runes here, which I'm not even going to try and translate, because, I mean, even the elven one was a bit naff. But you see this kind of golden dust or remnants here. What have they been working on, or is this just to kind of like clarify that they are smiths? Or are they going to be involved in the acquisition for the materials for the rings of power? We'll move on to this one, which also has this gold on the hands, which, anyway, their hands are clasped together and there is gold dust on their fingers. Thank you for stating the obvious. They are wearing golden and jeweled bracelets and a flowing robe with golden triangles wrapped over their shoulders. Now, I reckon this could also be a dwarf. Now, the reason behind that is, like, if you like look at the stature, like, there's the shoulder there, and this is their hand, and look how big the hand is. So, like, the arm would only go back to, like, there, and it's, like, folded behind them and then come back up here. And, like, this is already their waist here. And, like, the head would just be there. I don't think this is a particularly large being. And I also get the impression that this is a woman, or a female. So I think this could be a female dwarf here. And obviously they got a bunch of, maybe they rule one of the eastern realms in the Orocani. I don't know, but obviously loads of ornate jewelry here that, you know, you're probably going to get out of a mountain somewhere. Oh, but you can't really speak of anything gold without talking about this magical scepter. It's not magical. At the top of the rod, there is what appears to be a small sculpture. There is a ring on the hand, and we can see that the person is clad in simple light brown robes. Well, I mean, I'm not so sure what to make of the simple light brown robes, but this is a scepter. I mean, it says at the top of the rod, but there are a few very well-known rods in Middle-earth, and I think this is probably the scepter of the King of Numenor. I think this is probably, well, I mean, it could also belong to a queen, but this is probably, because there were queens, but this is probably the monarch of Numenor here with their staff. Now, that does look quite Minas Tirith-y, doesn't it? Although Minas Tirith wouldn't have been around, certainly not by that name. But could it be the scepter of Numinas, which is what Elendil held as the Lord of Andunia? No, because that would be silver. This is very distinctly gold. I think this is the scepter of the King of Numenor. As for the ring, it looks fairly simple. I don't think that's going to be a ring of power or anything of that sort. Not that the King of Numenor probably had one. Anyway, so we'll move on. And we'll see even more gold. And they are clad in golden robes and have several golden rings on their fingers. That is the extent of what we get shown in the description. Not a whole lot else to decipher. But he's got a lot of rings. I say he. I feel like this is a bloke. This is the first one to have a jewel in it. And it's kind of hard to decipher what this could be, but could this be a ring of power? It's also on the index finger, which is quite common to put it on the dominant finger. I'm thinking of Sauron with the one ring, Aragorn with the ring of Barahir. He also had it on his index finger. So I don't know what the rest of these could mean. But up here, this definitely looks like the Star of Fëanor, which is something that you would only see probably on someone that was of the House of Fëanor. And who do we know that is actually alive, that is still a part of, and kind of adding to his legacy? That would be Celebrimbor, who was the smith that created all of the rings of power besides the one. But there's an argument to be made here that this could be him. I don't think it would be Gil-galad because he wouldn't associate with Fëanor 1, and also he's not of the House of Fëanor number 2. So the other person that this could be is Ar-Pharazôn the Golden. The description literally says that here's a bloke in gold. He's got a bunch of gold fingers, gold rings on his fingers, and we've got a guy that is known to have the epithet of the Golden. This could be him. But this is slightly confusing then. Why the Star of Fëanor would be there, I'm not so sure. So we'll have to leave that one out. Yeah. But I'll bring this up immediately after. And they are dressed in a golden tunic and are wearing golden bracelets and a ring. Again, that is on the index finger there. This time on the right hand, which is probably the more dominant one. Which is quite interesting. Now, I would say that this white flower here is potentially one of the flowers from Nimloth, which was the white tree of Numenor. And because of the general aesthetic here, we've got a bunch of gold here again. Like, look at this, like, linked dress. I don't think it's like a chainmail-esque thing. This is purely for show. I think this has kind of like a sign of monarchy. This could be potentially the Queen of Numenor. And because we just spoke about Ar-Pharazôn the Golden, this could be Tar Miriel, or later known as Ar-Zimrafel. So she could be like a counter to him, because she was known as one of the faithful, whereas Pharazôn was, of course, one of the king's men. He was anti the gods and the Valar. And we'll follow that up with someone that's holding a leather-bound book with an ornate design of curved and wavy lines on it. They wear bright clothing that is simple and without decoration, although they do have a little bit of something up there. Maybe that's just to fasten the sleeves together. And the wavy lines, like they look like waves. So my theory here is that this could be either the history of Beleriand before the waves came in. It could be just the history of Numenor, again, before the waves came in. Or it could just be like the book which holds the history of the Edain. Now, the manicured hands here suggest that this definitely isn't someone that is working out in the field. So, probably just someone that is in a court, either somewhere in Numenor or for the Elves. And this one here is absolutely fantastic. But we'll get onto the description. They are holding a sword by the hilt facing downward. The sword is ornate with a golden sun on the hilt. They wear golden armor with a similar sun emblem on the chest. Like there's a sun there, there's a sun there, and there's a sun there. And they've got a ring here, which I'll speak about in just a moment. Now, who do we know in the Second Age that was big into the sun? Well, there's a guy that is called of the Sun, Anorian. So the brother of Isildur, but I don't know why he would get a poster and then we don't get one for Elendil or any of the other ones. So that does kind of make me think maybe this isn't him. And why would it be him already at this stage when presumably there's going to be multiple seasons? Why would they have something that happens at the very end of the age already in the first season? I don't know. I hope that makes sense to you. But I'll read out what else I have written upon it. Green doesn't actually place him really anywhere. And I tried to have a look and see what this ring could actually mean, or what it says. But it's not quite enough resolution on there. However, and then also the script here has like, this is just like a double M here. Now, I don't know if that's because it's kind of linked there and it's like all joined up. But if we look over at our Tengwar here again, if I can just squeeze it on there. If we go over to the M here, which kind of looks similar to that, that is an N. Now, this bit here signifies an A. And assuming this is Quenya, the way that Quenya script works is that if you're reading something in Quenya, the vowels become these diphthongs upon the consonant which follows them. Okay? So the way that you'd read this is that you'd read the A, and then you'd come down for the N, and then you'd move across to the next one, rather than reading the N and then the A, if that makes sense. That is how it would work in Sindarin, but this is going to probably be in Quenya, because we know that the Numenorians would have, like, just as we used Latin back in the day in Europe, that was like the official language, they used Quenya for their high-ranking script. So if this is a very important person, they'd probably have that on a very important ring. But would Anorian actually have his name on a ring? Probably not. And having said that, as you go further along, you might have a case for saying that that is an R there, but then it's missing diphthongs and you can't really read it. So, well, I just thought it was interesting. So we'll move on to the next one. But let's get more rustic for a moment here. We've got a sickle holder. They are dressed in a greenish robe and hold a sickle. And that is all that we get. But it is a little bit odd. There's like a contrast in their clothing where this looks very ordinary. This looks quite ornate. They've got a golden belt there, which can't quite make out what this is meant to be. But then they've clearly got some dirt on their hands, so they are out working with what looks like is a slightly rusty old sickle. Is this like a riches to rags, downfall of a kingdom? We'll have to wait and see. As we see that their hands are slightly dirty and are clasped together over their stomach, they are wearing simple clothes of dark green and a shirt of faded red. This does look like someone that is kind of more of a nomadic background, perhaps someone from the east of Middle-earth, someone from the southeast, so Harad or Rune, and someone potentially from a desert region, because this kind of reminds me of, yeah, someone maybe like in our world, someone that would live in the Sahara, they might wear these kinds of garments. So yeah, we've got a few more. And here we have someone that is holding an object with markings on it. It's a scroll. Their robes are worn and dirty and faded green. They wear a chain necklace with a metal ring attached to it. So what are these markings here? This isn't anything that the Edain would have written, nothing that the Elves would have written. This is something from the Far East, because this isn't something that we have come across in reading Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. So I would think from the desert regions. Again, though, this guy looks really quite disheveled. He's not got like clean clothing. You know, this is someone that has lived a hard life, and this like chain about their neck doesn't look like they're really enjoying their existence. But this looks like it could be almost like a message in a bottle. What is in this scroll? I want to know. But I don't know. So we'll move on. We follow that up with a close-up of someone's small, childlike hands, and in their left hand they are holding what looks like blackberries, and their right hand is on the strap of a burlap bag. So yeah, they do look like blackberries. I probably would have left them a bit longer on the bush because they are not completely ripe. But whether or not this is a child, potentially, this burlap bag where they would put their blackberries, though, it looks like the sling, or the strap rather, is made up of hair, and of human hair. I don't think this is the hair of the person, because how would you otherwise, like, you'd have to reattach that every time, and you'd have to braid your hair like this each time. And speaking of natural, here we've got a rope handler, and they wear a plain ring on their pinky and an olive green shirt. So, and they've also got a heavy rope here, as you can see. Now, the heavy rope to me looks like... What does it look like? It looks like something that you'd rather have for a boat. Like, this doesn't look like just any old rope. This looks like something that you might tie around a mooring, something like that. But the earthy tones here that you have for, like, this strap, all these straps around here, and the greenness of the shirt, that kind of looks more that you would find in countryside. So you're thinking of the Shire that the hobbits wore there. I'm not saying this is a hobbit, but they wore these kind of earthy tones. So if this is someone that would be like a boatsman, I don't think they'd be out on the open sea. They wouldn't be wearing green. I reckon this is someone inland on rivers. So in the upper vales of the Anduin, potentially, or of the Gwathlo. And I don't think this is going to be a hobbit, because I don't think a hobbit would be wearing an iron ring, or just a plain ring, or just a ring. I don't think that looks to me like a hobbit would wear that. But on that huntsman vibe, someone that is out in the woods, out and about, we see here that the hand holds an arrow tightly. They are wearing clothing that features intricate designs. And we can just about see, I think, look like they've got some kind of brooch there, which looks like it would be a leaf to me. And on this breastplate, by the way, a very intricate design, because there's clearly a face on there, and there's all this leafy greenness around. And then you've got someone with an arrow. So, well, they've got a bit of a thumb ring there as well. Okay, I hadn't noticed that before. But and they've got the cloak. So this is a ranger, someone that doesn't want to be seen in the woods. Now, who do we know that kind of hangs around woods that would have a face like that? I'm not sure. It's probably not going to be like Tom Bombadil. This isn't... I shouldn't joke about that, because what if it is? But equally, I don't think this is like an Ent or something, because I don't think the Ents... I don't think they would have had faces this clear. So I'm not really sure who this could be, other than this is clearly someone that hides out in the forests. And whether or not this is a man or an elf is also something to speculate about, because if you also look at the map of Middle-earth at the beginning of the Second Age in particular, before the Numenorians came, a lot of the land on the coast from like Minhiriath all the way down through Enedwaith and like to the tip of the White Mountains, that was all forest. And you had the woodsmen that lived there, And when the Numenorians came around and started chopping down the trees, they weren't all that happy about it, and they were forced to kind of begin hostilities, shall we say. So perhaps that's what this arrow is about. There's going to be some kind of civil strife there against the Numenorians and their new colonies. And we have more simple photos. They are wearing simple clothes, but the fabric has a pattern of circles and stars, and there's gold trim on the sleeves. This star here could be the Star Fëanor again, but I doubt it. I don't think it would be. It could just be the Star of Eärendil. And the circles, I thought they were the sun. So we've got a bunch of celestial bodies anyway on this garment, and we've got some expensive dyes in the red, orange, and gold. So this is clearly someone that is of high stature, but the rest is purely guessing. I wouldn't be able to even tell you if it is an elf or a man, or if it's a man or a woman by those hands. But we are now on to the penultimate poster, and here we have someone in a blue robe. Indeed, their description says that their hand hangs onto their belt and has 2 golden jeweled rings. Their robes are navy blue and have gold trim. Their belt is gold and has an ornate golden buckle. I will say that is very ornate. Now, this is clearly someone that is very important. These rings, that is not the ring of Barra here, as I had previously spoken about. This would not have any of the serpents, but they do both have some kind of gems in. Now, are these rings of power? Probably wouldn't have 2 of them on at the same time, so maybe one of them is. And this is clearly a man, I would say, because he's got hand on his hand, or hair on his hand. But so it could be a Numenorian. It could be one of the blue wizards, because he's wearing blue. Now, it could also be one of the to-be Nazgul. So some of the Nazgul were known or speculated to have been of Numenorian blood. I think there were about 3 of the 9. This could have been one of the Nazgul before they turned into the ring wraiths. It could even be the Witch King, for all we know, because this is some fine clothing. This isn't something that any old person would have. But I do think it is a man, because if this was an elf, he's wearing blue, probably someone that is a Noldor, or maybe it would be someone that is close to the sea. Could it be Theoden the shipwright? He's quite famous. He's quite well known. Theoden, though, would have had a white beard. I feel like we'd probably see a bit of his beard there, so I don't think it's Theoden. I think it is a Numenorian man, possibly one that would become a Nazgul. But here we go then. This is one of my favorite. Well, there's like 3 favorite posters, and this is definitely one of them. I'd be interested to know what people thought this one was. But first off, we don't see any ring, because, of course, you've got the gauntlet there, and we only see one hand. So maybe there's a ring on the other hand. But we don't see the one ring. So I'd immediately think that this was not Sauron. I don't think this is Sauron. I think that they would not want to spoil the image that they want to give of him too soon. So I wouldn't think that they'd give it off in Rings of Power random poster. But if it was Sauron, I think in the prologue of The Lord of the Rings, he had it on his index finger, the one ring, and it was clearly visible. And I think it was on his right hand. So here we've got it on, we've only got the vision of the left hand. So if it was on the right, maybe it would be Sauron. But potentially, this could be one of the Nazgul. This could be the Witch King. This could be the same guy as in the previous poster I just showed, but a few years down the line, after the Rings of Power, or the Ring of Power that he had caused his soul to succumb to the One. And this is the end result. Now, I will say, I wish that by kind of zooming in here, you could see what was on these emblems upon the gauntlet and on the breastplate a bit better. It's just like, it's just out of focus, so you can't really see. But it's just like the design of the hilt and of the sword. This is, it's quite sinister, and everything's black. Even the chainmail is like coloured black, not just as steel would be. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think down below. Any of the posters that you've seen here, you can just find them on Lord of the Rings on Prime's Twitter account. That's where I got them from. And let me know what you think of certain things. Who do you think say this is? Or who did you think the one I thought was Galadriel? So thank you very much for watching, and good day.